name's Hido, and welcome to Cycling MTG's Card Closeup, where we take a deep dive into a card from Magic's history. And without further ado, let's get into it. Tombstone Stairwell is one of only 23 world enchantments. A magnificent list of EDH staples, which includes such hits as Bazaar of Wonders, which does nothing in EDH, but we do have Concordant Crossroads, which is a classic. But anyway, let's not talk about that rubbish. Let's get back to the Stairwell, which I think is an incredible card. Has a bunch of interesting interactions that we can exploit in some really interesting ways. So, let's get the bad news out of the way. This card has cumulative upkeep. Cumulative upkeep is a keyword ability on permanents that requires the permanent's controller to pay an increasing cost each turn, or else you have to sacrifice the permanent. The cost is based on the number of age counters on the permanent. So for the Stairwell, the first turn you have to pay 1 black and 1 of anything, then 2 black and 2 of anything, and so on as you get more age counters through the turns. And while this is a pretty big negative, the rest of the text more than makes up for it. At the beginning of each upkeep, if Tombstone Stairwell is on the battlefield, each player creates a 2/2 black zombie creature token with haste, named Tombstone, for each creature card in their graveyard. At the beginning of each end step, or when Tombstone Stairwell leaves the battlefield, destroy all tokens created with Tombstone Stairwell. They can't be regenerated. There's a lot to unpack in this card. It is a symmetrical effect that, on the surface, it does look pretty terrible for us. After all, the first batch of tokens are generated on our opponent's upkeep. And they have haste. So, we don't even get to have the first swing with the tokens. Our opponents do. But with a bit of nifty deck building, we can easily make sure that even though our opponents get to swing first, they probably won't be swinging at us. My Jared Golgari Lichlord EDH deck used to run this card, as it wants to get a ton of creatures into the graveyard through self-mill and cycling cards. So, more than likely our first batch of Stairwell tokens will be far larger than our opponents, and they will be more than able to hold down the fort against our opponent's tokens. Hopefully this will cause our opponents to swing at each other, causing a nice bit of chit damage against everyone aside from us. And then when it gets back to our turn, we can swing in for some massive damage with our enormous army of tokens. Which is a reasonable use of the card, but we can go deeper than that. The wording on the card is very specific. At the beginning of each end step, we destroy those tokens. We don't sacrifice them, which is something that you don't really see in modern Magic. The most recent example I can think of is Magus of the Disc, although I am sure that there are far more. But, like with Magus, if you can make your permanents indestructible through something like Avacyn Angel of Hope or Eldrazi Monument, Tombstone Stairwell would attempt to destroy our tokens, but they wouldn't be able to. Further to that, this also doesn't stop the token generation each upkeep. So, every turn our army of spawns will grow and grow and grow. This is one of my favourite little tricks with this card, but if we can't make everything indestructible, there is more to exploit. Each and every turn we'll be having tons of tokens dying under our control. But it's not just ours, it's also our opponents. So, why don't we exploit some death triggers? Blood Artist and Falcon Wrath Noble can make quick work of our opponents, pinging for huge amounts of damage on each end step. In a vampire deck, Cordial Vampire can grow our creatures to insane sizes. For all those Griswold fans out there, the slimy fella can get a ton of counters for all the tokens exploding. Liliana Dreadhorde General will draw you a mountain of cards, although, be careful, you don't want to kill yourself. There are just tons and tons of on-death effects that this card can help us take advantage of. And finally, I did start by saying this is a symmetrical effect, and this is something I want to say about all symmetrical effects. If your opponents will get more advantage from this card being played, if their graveyard is more filled with creatures, or they're the one who controls a Blood Artist or an Avacyn, don't cast the card. Obviously, you put this card into your deck to help you win, but if it's going to help your opponents to win, hold it. Be patient, work on taking your opponents down first. Exile the graveyard with Scavenging Ooze, Swords to Plowshares the Avacyn. Take extra precautions, and think before you just throw this card onto the field. As especially with cumulative upkeep, it is quite an investment, and you don't want it turning south on you. And that wraps up our card close-up for today. I hope this video has inspired you to try out this card in your own decks, and if I have missed anything to do with this card, please do leave a comment. If you enjoyed this video and want to see some more content, do consider subscribing, as it helps the channel and you can keep up to date with all the strange and wonderful cards in Magic's history. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.